Like to call the meeting to order.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Trustee Foley,
Present.
trustee Lappin.
Here.
Clerk Palovich here, treasurer Ellery Summers. Here. Trustee Kroll,
Here.
trustee Reiner,
Here.
supervisor Kujabaski. Here.
The agenda.
I have something to add to the agenda. So it would be under new business number 6. It's the city of Alpena water sewer bill. And I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda with that addition.
I'll support.
Any discussion? Amen. Voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? First,
Opportunity.
First, thank you. First opportunity for public comment. If you're online on Zoom, please click on the ellipsis. Seeing none, anybody in the audience, public comment? Also seeing none. Yeah, to the consent agenda.
I'm sorry.
I move to accept the sport and adopt the consent agenda.
Motion by trustee Reiner, supported by trustee Lappin.
Yes.
Any discussion? Consent agenda. Roll call, please.
Clerk Palovich, yes. Treasurer Ellery Summers.
Yes.
Trustee Kroll,
Yes.
trustee Reiner.
Yes.
Trustee Foley.
Yes.
Trustee Lappin.
Yes.
Supervisor Kujabaski.
Yes. Old business?
Can I address this? You'd like?
Yes.
Or did you want to, Michelle?
No,
Okay.
feel free.
Really?
Feel free.
Thought you'd jump at that.
No, I'm not jumping at that.
This is a topic that came up at the last regular meeting. It's the F and B operation and maintenance agreement, a proposed amendment by which F and B would provide the utility billing services with a person who specializes in that. And so the contract amendment proposes an increase to the usual annual compensation that the company receives and increasing it by including that utility billing service charge. And a question came up at the last meeting about, well, then it would be subject to the annual cost of living increases. And so I looked at the agreement and yep, that's what it does. And so I don't know if the company, is the company's position, it wants to, that's the way it wants.
It wants it to remain
Okay.
that way, yes.
So I asked Michelle to bring it back because I didn't want to just rubber stamp it saying it looks good to me. It is unambiguously written. There's nothing, I don't have any concerns about the verbiage. Just that I think still we could use a motion one way or the other about whether the board wishes to
Okay,
proceed.
and I don't know if trustee Lappin, if you want to,
Well, I still don't,
and Kath from F and B is here. So if we have any questions, we can ask Kath too.
personally, I'd way rather see this as a separate agreement. Not tied to something. I don't know if things don't work out, how easy is it to walk out of it? Is there an escape clause in it? I don't recall.
It would just be into
Just
the
amended to the whole thing.
The whole
So
thing
there- so
would,
there's
we'd be
nothing-
relying on the main
Yeah.
agreement. Yep.
So I wasn't sure, and I can't remember if I read, if this person didn't work out for one reason or another, should he or she can't find residency in Alpena, they're traveling back and forth, they're not be able to make work hours because of weather or whatever the case may be. And if we are pinned to a contract, and if we choose to terminate that contract or that relationship, is it just a walk away from it, or is it, well, no, you entered into this agreement and it's good until 2027 or whatever it might be. I don't like being hogtied to something that may or may not work out. And that's my biggest, one of my biggest concerns. Plus, I guess I don't know if we even tried to find somebody to take the position as an employee of the township, but I understand the logic behind it, but I'm concerned about.
Okay,
tying it
so,
all together.
so the contract obviously can be amended. So in the event that the township was dissatisfied with that portion of the contract, we could re-amend the contract to remove those services. We can do that. I mean, we don't like to do that, but we could. It's tied to the contract because utility billing is not part of our core business model. We do operation and maintenance, and we've offered it to the township at their request as an add-on to our existing contract. We would never offer it as a standalone service. So we don't want to have it as a separate agreement. It's part of your O&M. It's an add-on to your O&M. But like I said, the contract can be amended. I'm sure Mr. Golden can speak to that in the events that 6 months or a year from now, the township was not happy with the performance, or there was something else going on, or, you know, somehow, you know, the situation changed, that the contract could be open to be re-amended by removing that portion of it. So at that point in time, obviously, you know, that would have to be discussed how you would want to handle that.
Russ had his hand up first.
Do I have a floor? Okay. Just a question on, Steve's question is whether or not it'd be a separate contract. You do this service for other places.
Only as part of our O&M operations. We do not do it as a standalone service. Any
Okay.
other place we have done it, we've added it just like this as an amendment to the O&M or agreement.
I'm past that, but just and the cost of living increases are the same as built into the master contract?
If you read the master contract, and it's, you know, quite a long paragraph, but it's basically an employee cost index. So it's based on employment costs only, not inflationary costs related to non-employment factors. So generally, those are more conservative than the rate of general inflation.
I don't know what your situation is as far as unionization, but would this be also subject to changes in employment contracts with?
We are a non-union at-will employer.
I didn't really care for the term hogtied, but I feel that F&B has been nothing but professional with the township. It's done nothing but make the township better. I mean, we provide a very professional service. We are family using the expertise of F&B to serve our residents. And I am very excited if this goes through for sure, because to have a professional utility billing clerk that knows how to work with F&B, the conversations that go back and forth. I mean, this person's been doing it, working in the BSNA modules. There's just so much more knowledge than what is in place at the moment. So this is a no-brainer, in my opinion, that we need to do this.
May I direct a question to the treasurer? The question I have is, in terms of overall cost, my recollection from a discussion we had, correct me if I'm wrong, it was that this is less than 10,000 more than if we hired a person, then we'd have to train and all of that. Is that
It'd
correct?
be 5.
When I did the cost for us to hire the person, we would be paying F&B about $5,000 a year more.
But they have backup.
But
My
there's more
understanding is
backup,
backups.
there's more experience. I mean, we're talking hiring someone with absolutely no BSNA, no utility background,
If we didn't do this.
if we don't do
Right,
that.
right.
And I would also opine, I don't, but it depends on who we could hire, but
And they would be responsible for training, her education, or his, whoever the
Yeah.
person is that.
the thing I just wanted to state, which I believe is correct, is that some of the concerns that Mr. Lappin had, trustee Lappin had, is, sounds like we could have the same kinds of problems. Somebody from out of town take the job, somebody have travel issues and all of those things.
But then that would not be our issue. It is F and V's issue to make sure.
We're talking
the job
about if
is
we
done.
kept it in-house.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes, and we would work with you guys. We want you to be satisfied. We already have a plan in place. Our all existing staff that are here are interested in being cross-trained to support this position more. And so that if the event that, say, the utility billing clerk was on vacation for 2 weeks, you know, they would help cover that function so that the township wouldn't be short-staffed. We also have other people outside of the area that can provide technical support. You know, if for example, the regular UB was on vacation and they were covering, and then they got into a dilemma, that they could call the other people that we have that also do BSNA billing, you know, and are familiar with it for additional support. So, and BSNA does great support also. So if anybody who's used it knows that they're really good about
Another
that.
question, would this person be on site?
This person is going to be on site in your office.
Trustee Lappin.
Oh, I'm sorry. Real quick question. You may have just answered one of my questions. Is this person will be exclusive to the township, or do they operate other municipalities as well?
They would be exclusive to the township, but as you know, we are a team player. So, you know, just the same as if the person that was here could help someone remotely answer questions or something like that, you know, we're gonna, obviously, we,
I
you know, share
understand.
staff,
I just
but
wasn't-
he or she would be here as a full-time part of your township team, just like the rest of the staff are. And then, you know, except for training and holidays and vacations and stuff, so.
Yeah, and just to clarify, I have no problem with F and B as an organization. You guys have done a great job. I was really referring to just trying to tie too much into one contract without the ability to sort of slice things out.
Trustee Foley.
Basically, you're hiring a person to take a position, just like the rest of the people that you've got working for you that are working for the township, and they're gonna be handled in the same basic way.
We do have somebody already on staff that lives closer to Alpena Township and is interested in moving to your project. They're currently assigned someplace else, so I think it would be a very easy transition. And so, it would just be a matter of timing. I know that you guys have some level of urgency, so there may be a little bit of shared time, just, you know, the first couple of weeks, just because obviously we're gonna have to replace this person at the other site. But, you know, they would be your full-time staff member shortly into January
But it's an F and V employee.
as an F and V employee
And under your supervision.
and under my supervision, yes.
Any other questions or discussion?
I make the motion.
I'll support.
So the motion is to amend the contract as presented,
Accept.
contract, the amendment.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was motion by Reiner, supported by Treasurer Ellery Summers. Treasury Ellery, excuse me, Treasurer Ellery Summers.
Yes.
Trustee Kroll,
Yes.
Trustee Reiner.
Yes.
Trustee Foley,
Yes.
Trustee Lappin,
Yes.
Clerk Palovich, yes. Supervisor Kujabaski.
No.
Motion passed.
Excuse me, I don't want to violate the rules of order, but I did want to point out that the date applicable was December 1st on the proposed amendment, so then that needs to be changed to
December 16th,
probably January.
January 1st. Okay,
Or do we want to do it the Monday after Kelly retires? It's on the third, and this person would say it started with that
talk
Monday.
louder.
Well, I'm just thinking
Yeah.
we should have it start on the Monday after the 3rd of January.
Or
The
just
6th.
Friday, I think.
Does that work? January 6th be the first day?
We need to amend the motion to.
Tim, do we need to amend the motion and do another vote?
Let's consider that a friendly amendment so that, your minutes will show that it'll start January 2025.
Okay, and then do I have to show that we voted twice on this? In my
No.
minute, okay, so I do have to take another vote though.
Yeah, let's take another.
Roll call.
Treasurer Ellery Summers.
Yes.
Trustee Kroll,
Yes.
Trustee Reiner.
Yes.
Trustee Polly.
Yes.
Trustee Lappin.
Yes,
Clerk Palovich, yes. Supervisor Kujabaski.
No.
Motion passed.
Okay, moving on to new business. First item is budget adjustments.
There's just a few little budget adjustments that, I think Haley found most of them. We were gonna run out in a few GLs by the end of the fiscal year. So.
Yeah. Well, and banking fees we never budgeted enough to get us through.
Right,
That was
right.
one of them. Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the budget adjustments as presented.
Support.
Any other discussion? Roll call.
Trustee Kroll,
Yes.
Trustee Reiner,
Yes.
Trustee Polly,
Yes.
Trustee Lappin.
yes,
Clerk Palovich, yes. Treasurer Ellery Summers.
Yes.
Supervisor Kujabaski.
Yes. To the planning commission recommendation for the joint master plan.
I guess, Norm, could you kind of lead us along the recommendation of the planning commission?
Really, I don't have a lot to say on it because we're working on it with Denise Klein. You know, with NEMCOG, and they're basically gonna do it, plus we have a grant that's gonna be covering the cost. So that's. a
The
pretty-
entire cost of it?
Yes, and I think we'll have some money.
But the
for it.
planning commission, you are the ones recommending that we do it as a joint master
Yes.
plan. Okay. And that was in the minutes that were in correspondence.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, 3 or 4, I don't think that's settled yet either.
I just raised a question, Norm, when I was looking at that is what's the advantages of doing it joint? Simply cost savings, or is there something broader in terms of planning that we're looking at that could incorporate more than one?
Well, as we touch
And
base
it's,
with other townships, we kind of blend some things that maybe might be crossing where we're pulling them together.
Okay.
Getting the betterment of the communities working together.
So who's all involved in the joint plan? Excuse me, who's all involved in this?
That
joint-
hasn't been finalized yet. They're still working out.
It said that in their minutes. They were, you had some named, I think, but then there's some that were pending possibly.
Yes, I think there was 1 or 2. They weren't.
Yeah,
Hidden
yeah,
things.
where's that
Sounds like a good
sounding? I'll make a motion that the Charter Township of Alpena participate in the joint master plan project in 2025 with the other participating Alpena County municipalities.
As funded by.
Support.
Reported by. Okay.
Roll call. Please. Oh, any other discussion?
Do we want to add in there that it's a 100% grant, no match? In the motion?
I don't think we need to, we already.
yeah, there was last month, I think it was, there was NEMCOG, it was what,
We-
$57,000.
We approved that,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
contract that did that.
Anything else? Roll call. Please.
Trustee Reiner,
Yes.
trustee Polly,
Yeah.
trustee Lappin,
Yes,
clerk Palovich, yes. Treasurer Ellery Summers.
Yes.
Trustee Kroll,
Yes.
Supervisor Kujabaski.
Yes. Number 3 under new business is the fire department, the R&R fire truck repair invoice. Michelle.
The chiefs.
I think the chief is here. and-
Yeah,
Okay.
everything doesn't have to come through you.
It does for me.
Yeah, we've discussed. it.
Good evening. All right, so about that bill, it is for a grant that was through the labor and economic opportunity through the state. That was for full-time firefighters to get a second set of turnout gear, structural firefighting gear. The process changed once it was applied for. And Jim can explain anything on that as far as what had happened with the actual announcement of the grant. Because he sat through the original, this all happened prior to me coming here. But what it is the money has been It's been allocated, right? And then the turnout gear has been received. Now we will be billing the state, or we have to pay R&R and they will reimburse us for that. So all of that is 100% returned. Because on that bill, it was actually, if you got the second half of it, there was another small note on it, but I think you only got the one that has just the gear on it for the 20,000.
As I understand it, the process that changed was the reimbursement as opposed to the upfront money.
Correct.
Good,
Correct.
thank you, Steve.
So now I was able to get access to that, and we'll be working with Clerk Palovich tomorrow. Hopefully, because she has to make an approval on that as the first step of the process. And then once that's completed through the state for all of August, because they're still working on August, then we can submit our reimbursement to get paid back.
You know whether or not there's any chance it will be back to us before April 1?
Good luck.
Good question.
It's the state, so we're hoping.
I'm gonna say
But, yeah.
no.
So it's gonna be a next fiscal year?
It took me a year to get a reimbursement for the security grant for the clerk's election. So it took 12 months, so.
In the meantime, where does this come out of?
Well, there is a savings, the public
Okay,
safety has extra money
Okay.
that's in their savings. We will get it paid right away tomorrow. I'm sure we have to send in a copy of the cash check. So all that takes time. We'll get it mailed out. You have something to say, Haley?
I'm sorry. Nothing much. What GL? Is there enough money in there?
It was,
Tomorrow.
it depends
Well,
on how
If
much.
there's not enough money, we may have to do a budget.
It's where
adjustment.
it's the same GL as the funds that went for paid on call to be manning the stations. It's that one. I can look it up.
But it's still gotta be paid out of GL. There's one called turnout gear.
Oh, I can,
Yeah.
yeah, you don't have enough money in there. You'll have to move it then if you're gonna use it. It's in a fund, it's not part of the, it have to be moved from the budget and you have to be a,
Full
Change,
time,
budget change,
we need to
adjustment.
put that money in that GL
yeah, from that fund.
from the, yeah, so,
There should be a line item for full-time PPE.
yes,
And
and
that's where
it
it
is.
should come from.
And it only has $1,000 in it. So I'm gonna make a motion that we pay the bill to R&R and do a budget adjustment to fund that GL for the turnout gear.
And when the
In the
funds
amount,
come in, it goes back into that fund.
it will go into revenue as a grant.
but
We
it's
have to keep
going
track of it as revenue.
general fund or fire department?
No, it goes
Fire
into the fire
department.
department
Okay.
fund. Yeah.
But it won't, okay,
It won't go into an expense GL, it has to go into a revenue.
which is.
Our auditors like it that way. So the motion is to approve the payment to R&R fire truck for the second set of turnout gear in the amount of $20,056 and to do a budget adjustment to fund the line item 205,336,730.000. And I'll make that motion.
Any other discussion? Roll call.
Trustee Polly,
Yes.
trustee Lappin,
Yes.
clerk Palovich, yes. Treasurer Ellery Summers.
Yes.
Trustee Kroll,
Yes.
trustee Reiner,
Yes,
supervisor Kujabaski.
Yes.
Thank you, Haley. No, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
New business number 4, the fire department, FEMA grant.
Yes, I'd like to have Jim come up since he wrote the grant, so he could be more appropriate to answer questions.
Good evening. What this is the Assistance to Firefighters Grant through the federal government. It's a yearly program. This year, we actually applied back February, March for a communications grant as a joint through Wilson and Green Townships. We didn't receive that grant. Normally, this is a every calendar year process. For some reason, they opened up the fiscal year 2024 grant in November, the end of November, and it closes on the 20th of December, which is different. So we had a very short window, very short time to write and decide what we were going to apply for. So what we came up with, this is before Chief Baker came here, we decided to apply for personal protective equipment because that is a high priority under the notice of funding from the federal government. Radios is now a low priority during this grant cycle, so we didn't apply for radios again, and vehicles are a low priority. So we opted to go with personal protective equipment. What we wrote the grant for was for 20 sets of wildland/extrication turnout gear for each member of the department. It's the same gear that was purchased for firefighter paramedic Banks and for paramedic Kajabuski when she was on the department. What it is, it's a lighter weight coat and pants that is certified for use in wildland fires and also in extrication at accident scenes. Instead of wearing our structural turnout gear at accident scenes, we can wear that, and it's a lighter weight, so it's less stress on us. Also, it keeps our exposure to any PFAS or PFAS that might be in our turnout gear. It cuts that exposure down. So we put in for 20 sets of that, 10 wildland harnesses, which are shoulder straps and waist belts that can carry wildland emergency shelters for the full timers, and then 2 shelters and harnesses for the brush truck and for our ranger, so that all of our members can be protected in the event that we're out in the wildland and we get overrun. We have that emergency shelter on us. We currently only have 2 in the department, and they sit on the ranger. Also, we opted to get helmets, goggles, helmet lights, and wildland boots for all the members. And then also 10 sets of structural turnout gear. We have 3 new paid on calls that are going through the academy right now that will need in-date turnout gear to be able to enter a structure once they graduate from the academy. And we have several members that are in older gear that it's approaching the end of its life. Also, we're going to include Chief Baker in this as one of the 10 to get a new set of turnout gear for him.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So the 20 sets of wildland gear, that includes full-time,
Full-time and
paid
paid
on
on calls.
call, and the chief?
Yes.
So how many full or paid on calls do we currently have that are active right now?
That are active, 13, 12, 13. I don't have the numbers directly in front of me.
I mean, I just don't want to buy extra stuff if somebody's not being active when we could put it towards something that. Would
I
go
fully
to
agree with you.
I think we need to start a definition of what active means.
Right,
Because there might be 13 people on
right,
the paid on calls, but maybe only 8 are active.
right.
So I don't know what our definition of active, like if you haven't come to a call in 6 months, is that considered active?
Right.
Right, and I fully agree with you, and that's a discussion that Chief Baker and I will have to have as the training officer. To see what we can do, what we have to do.
Another question I have is there a check off sheet or something? So when someone knew, okay, you're gonna get this, 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 and this, and your name is this, and it's all checked off, this is all assigned to you, and then when that person leaves or something expires or whatever, that's tracked somehow.
Yes, we have a
do
folder
have
that is tracked in. We also have a electronic software, for lack of better terms, that we also utilize. So it's all tracked of who has what the serial numbers are for that gear, what the expiration date, manufacturer date. We have all that tracked.
Which you can.
One other thing I wanted to add.
To make sure it's
No,
fair.
it was just, right, I was just curious because in the past, I don't think that was. done.
Yeah,
Sorry.
that's something we have been working on, keeping that up to date.
Yeah.
Also with this grant, the grant total is 111,723.30. 723.30, and our share would be $5,320.16. That's what the township
What
would
was our
have to
share
pay.
again?
5,320.16.
And what GL would that be paid out of? And is that gonna be in this fiscal year or the next fiscal year?
That I couldn't tell you. I don't know when they're going to.
So we need to keep that in mind during budget, that.
Correct.
And again, that's pending.
That's that's if we get it. if
Right, but
get
we
the
have to
grant.
have money
Right.
budgeted.
Right, and that's why we're bringing this to you folks tonight is because of the amount that is our share. We have to get board approval for that. But I think $5,300 for $111,000 worth of equipment, if we actually get that grant, I think that's a steal.
Not bad.
And this will have to
Question?
be part of
Trustee
the
Reiner.
Thank you.
budget next year. Isn't that right?
We just talked about it a minute ago. Is this a reimbursement grant or is this a money first grant?
I personally have not been involved in a AFG grant where we've received, where we actually were awarded it. So I can't say yes, no, maybe so. Chief Baker, do you have?
My understanding that AFG grants are upfront. So you don't, there's no reimbursement
That'd be nice.
Okay,
We just would have to pay our $5,320.
to get the money.
okay, well, work on that for the budget, but that's not probably not a big issue. What I was gonna suggest, if it is a reimbursement grant, is if you get the equipment, you buy it with the understanding you can return it. If you don't get, those monies aren't paid by such and such a date. And secondly, that, not used, obviously, so that. I also looked through this a little bit. I saw this kind of a check the box thing and so on.
A lot of it is, yes. This is actually the third AFG grant that I've written. We submitted the one earlier in the year for the radios, and then this one, and I wrote one a couple of years ago that did not get submitted. So.
I'm not a grant writer and I don't know how to. do a
I'm
federal
learning
form
as I
where you
go.
Check the box, but I thought there might have been a couple places where you might want to check the
Yeah.
box.
Yeah.
Or something where it wasn't, and so you might want to just do a proofread editing, or maybe have another.
There's
set of
quite
eyes
a
look
few
at it.
where there's
Yeah,
nothing
I
checked.
noticed,
As
I noticed several, of those, and I wondered if this was just
Right.
like the first draft of a grant before you send it in, because I can't help but wonder that if you leave some things blank, somebody's
Does it
either gonna
hurt you?
set it aside. or-
no, if anything is left blank and there's supposed to be an answer there, it kicks it back and says you can't do anything with it, or this is missing.
Oh, so this is submitted online then?
Correct.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is all submitted through the computer, through the FEMA Go.
Okay,
Supervisor Kajabowski and I have been able to get her registered with that so that she had access to it, and it actually has to be approved by the supervisor before it gets submitted to FEMA.
It seems odd that we wouldn't answer some of these questions, like, do you have seasonal increase in population? Yes
Yep.
or not?
That was answered. That was answered on the application,
yeah, there were.
on the
several.
electronic application when it was submitted. Because we do have an increase, and that's part of the population that I use to figure out the cost per citizen for the equipment.
It's possible that this was printed off before the grant was actually submitted.
Yes, yeah, because this was printed off before I sent it to the supervisor for submission. And once it was submitted, I can't pull that grant back up online.
So how do
So
you
this has
get it?
already been submitted.
Yes,
Right, but how do you get a confirmation that they've actually received it?
but it sends it that it was received, I believe.
But do you have something to show?
Yeah, I have an email that it was submitted. So it's been submitted,
Just
they
in
have
case.
received it, and it's up to the grant reviewers and them to review the grant and decide if we are worthy enough to receive this grant.
I mean, for future, I think it would be nice to have it be more filled out, even if you submit it and print it, or somehow get a copy of exactly what you submitted, just for future.
Some of the issues with there is you can see some of the boxes for narrative. You don't get the full.
What was submitted for the
submitted,
narrative.
Right,
Because that's just a issue with software.
right.
Yeah, I actually have all the narratives. If anybody wanted to read the whole narratives, I have those. Because they were actually, I created those on a Word document and then just copy and pasted it to that part of the grant request. Yes, sir.
So, couple of questions. The first question's already been, answered about some of the missing parts of the grant. Many times when you apply for a grant, you know, you're only allowed so many that you can submit. Do you know if FEMA has a, you know, like a cap? You can only submit so many per
Yes, they do.
municipality? All right.
As far as each fiscal grant period, you can only submit X number of grants.
And how are we doing?
How are we doing?
Is this the first?
This is the only one that we were going to submit for
All right.
for this grant cycle.
All right, that answers that then. I guess the other question is, if we've already submitted this, wouldn't we have needed approval to spend the money?
The 5,000.
Yeah, 5,300.
Abby and I discussed this and it was getting close to the deadline, which I know is not till the 20th, I think, but we never know when things are gonna go sideways. So it was, let's get it submitted and get.
Ask forgiveness?
Yeah, I heard that recently from a
Yes.
member, so
And
it's for forgiveness to make sure it got submitted timely.
we didn't want it to get towards the end of the application period, and as Michelle said, something go bad,
Yeah,
Yeah,
can't get
thank
into
you.
the computer for whatever reason,
Yeah.
can't log in for whatever reason, and now we've passed the time period and we can't submit. That
Well,
happened 2 years ago that we weren't able to submit because of.
I guess in the future, we should anticipate some of those things. I totally agree that this is excellent use of money. If we can spend $5,000 to get 105,000, pretty good deal. So I wish you success on it.
And like I said, this was kind of odd this year. It was all of a sudden grants open. Normally, we get 2 or 3 months notice of the grant's gonna open on X date.
Yeah,
So we have time to prepare, time to start getting our ducks in a row of, okay, what do we want to order? What do we want to put in for? It was grants open, you got till the 20th.
so I guess the last question I have, and it kind of goes to what Trustee Reiner is saying about whether or not this is a reimbursement grant. I guess I'm a little bit surprised that the government would just send us a check in hopes that we would go out and buy that stuff.
Well,
Normally,
there is a process. If we are awarded the grant, there is a lengthy process and documents we have to fill out. We have to give them our bids or our quotes for the gear. We have to give them the receipts, and there is a set process that we have to follow.
If we give them the receipts, does that mean we paid for it?
After we receive the money, we have to actually account for
the money.
we have to account for the money that we spend, because I have heard from other places that have received AFG grants that they put in for a grant and received the grant, and then prices have gone down for whatever they were going to buy and that they applied for.
Yeah.
So they have, $100,000 left over out of their grant request. And federal government says, we don't want it back, spend it.
That sounds about right.
So that's, and so there is a process that you've got to
Okay.
document where the money goes, and
Good with the idea that we're not gonna drain a checkbook. in
no,
hopes that
no, and that's the whole thing with this process is they're supposed to give us the money, we submit
Yeah.
payments for whatever after they give us the money and go from there.
Excellent.
Because when we
Yeah.
start and actually get apparatus off this, and you wouldn't expect them to put up $1.2 million for an apparatus and do exactly what you say.
Yeah.
Without them fronting the money.
Exactly.
And as of right now, some apparatus are 2 to 3 years out,
Yeah.
once they order it.
And they don't go down.
Yeah.
No, they don't, no.
So I guess my question is, what exactly motion do we need? Are we looking for here?
Just approve
The motion to approve the expenditure of 5,300 and
Okay.
Yeah, upon notification of being awarded the grant, the township agrees to spend $5,320 and whatever cents.
The question is whether it's in this fiscal year. Is it when we spend it or when we approve it?
I don't think it's gonna be in this fiscal year.
I know it. So if we approve it now, does it have to be set aside out of this budget
Yes. Yes, we set aside.
for your auditors?
Yes.
I just wanted to add really quick regarding this, that I have been in contact with Senator Peters' office multiple times in the last 3 weeks. And they would like to write, or they have written a letter of support for our grant to FEMA. And once I get a copy of that, I can submit that to the board also.
Well, let's hope it works.
Fingers crossed. You know, I don't know how many thousands of grants are submitted each year.
227,212.
That's
Just a
like,
guess.
it could be very close. I honestly don't know. I know that I've actually spent time going through the FEMA website and the AFG website of how much departments get. And there are departments that get several $1 million a year on grants, and they have professional grant writers to write them. I'm not a professional grant writer. I do the best I can, and I'm learning as I go. Maybe in the future is something we could look at, potentially hiring a grant writer. Some grant writers, you can actually include in the grant request the cost of the grant writer. So if you are awarded the grant, that covers the cost of the grant writer. So it's just something to think about going forward in the future. Yes.
Yes, just while I'm sitting here thinking about this, and I know we always need things for the fire department, but we don't have very many opportunities to get this kind of money in a grant.
Correct.
So this is my thought, but it's kind of already done, but I just think for future, if we have the opportunity to get a large amount like this, we should buy a big ticket item instead of these smaller things.
And like I
Because
said,
we can always go for a smaller grant to buy whatever, even if you divided this all up, to buy helmets or buy, whatever it is. But if we can get a big lump like this, it'd be nice to spend it on a big. like that.
and I actually considered that when I was looking at what we were going to apply for. And like I said, under the notice of funding, vehicles is a low priority. Radios was a low priority. The high priority ticket items this year is personal protective equipment. That's why we opted to go for that. And I agree with you on that.
It's gonna be like, oh my gosh, we need a new whatever. I mean,
Yeah,
it'll
and-
be.
And unfortunately, I mean, I would have loved to have put in to replace all of our SCBA, but our SCBA are not old enough to qualify that, hey, our stuff's coming out of date or it's out of date. We can't afford to buy new. Please help us buy new stuff. In a couple of years, we can do
Surely
that.
we're getting things.
And the county helps us with the radios every year, right? So
Yes.
we're keeping up with that, I think.
Yes, we are. And like I said, the previous AFG grant we put in for was a regional grant between us, Wilson, and Green Townships. And we were trying to get, I think it was 48 portable radios so that each department had all new radios. Unfortunately, we weren't selected to be awarded that grant, but I was hopeful because regional grants are kind of put in a separate spot under the AFG grants than a standalone single department.
I think they give more attention.
No, we do not have a motion yet.
I'll make a motion to approve the submittal of the grant and the expenditure of 5,300.
2016. 5,000.
$216. Okay, yeah, gotcha. Now I know what 20. 2016, how can it be?
53,
No.
2016,
50
5,300.
$5,320.
And 16 cents, thank you.
I was like, what are you talking about?
Talk about round dollars. All right,
Okay, I have a motion by trustee Reiner.
got it?
That was-
You want me to
I'm
repeat
looking
that?
for support.
I support it.
Okay,
Any other discussion?
Do we know where we're gonna pay for this out of?
Didn't even
We
know what
don't-
year.
We're not decided.
at the budget.
Yep, okay, yep.
Yep.
Roll call?
Trustee Lappin,
Yes.
clerk Flavich, yes. Treasurer Ellery Summers.
Yes.
Trustee Kroll,
Yes.
Trustee Reiner.
Yes,
Trustee Polly.
Yes.
Supervisor Kozibowski.
Yes. Item number 5 under new business, the fixed asset disposal list.
I got a request from Chief Baker for us to dispose of 2 cots that are in the back that we are no longer using. Do we have a value that we think we can get for these?
Yes, we were contacted by Diet Medical Supply downstate. They have offered us $1,100 a piece for the 2 stretchers. So it'll be $2,200. They will handle picking them up and shipment. But this has actually been an ongoing process since July. And they were actually requested to have been put on the asset disposal list several months ago somehow.
This was the first time it was requested to be put on the fixed asset disposal list, and those requests have to come to me. So this
Okay.
is so it was not requested
Well-
months ago.
However it happened, I don't know. But,
Well, then
For us
you're
to
making
get-
a statement, so.
okay, for us to get rid of them, we have to put it on the asset disposal list. Once they're on that, then I can move forward contacting Diet Medical to say, yes. We want to sell them for $1,100 a piece. And
What year did we, or how old are these? They're not,
I don't know the answer.
they're
to
probably
that.
under 5 years old.
They're
no,
not the
they're-
strikers that,
Oh,
went with-
these
the
aren't-
strikers went with the ambulances when we sold.
these
them.
are strikers.
These are-
But these are not the strikers we bought when we
Okay,
got.
that's what
Yeah,
I thought
these
they
are not
were.
power load stretchers. These
Okay.
are the old
All right,
manual
'cause I'm
striker
like, I
stretchers.
don't know about $1,100. Seems like we should have
No,
more money
those-
than that.
No, these are the old
$35.
manual
Okay,
stretchers.
well, that's what,
Yeah.
right,
Trustee Polly, did you?
okay.
Trustee Polly, did you?
Yeah, what, has anybody else offered a price on these?
No, sir.
Has there been some kind of like word gone out that we have these, that we're gonna get rid of them?
Not to my knowledge, no.
How did this one company find out about
They actually sent an email to a former employee's email. It got forwarded to Chief Hansen. Chief Hansen gave it to me and says, hey, you want to contact these people and see what we can arrange. The original thought process was to actually trade those 2 stretchers in for a stair chair for Rescue 1. They don't have any stair chairs in stock. So I said, well, what will you offer us for these? And the offer was $1,100 a piece.
A pretty good deal.
And just,
It's $2,200 that we wouldn't have otherwise, and it's 2 stretchers that have been sitting collecting dust, at least for the 2 years that I've been here.
And I don't think there's a lot
How
of
much is
people
a
out
stair
there
chair?
requesting them.
Stair chair is about $2,200-$2,300.
So can we say we're gonna use the money from these
Those are the
to
things.
buy
carry
those
up
stair
Casey down the
chair?
steps with.
We can't.
We haven't discussed that. At this point, we're just trying to get them on the asset disposal list so we can move forward with getting rid of them. And then once we get the payment, put that wherever we need to put it in the budget for whatever we need to purchase. And the stair chair, if we have one, great. If we don't, okay. I mean, we've been going without it for this long. So it's, at this point, let's just move forward and get rid of the 2 stretchers first and then.
Chief Baker's only been on the job for 2 weeks. He's probably wants to get to know the whole department and see where we need to spend our money.
Exactly.
Yes,
So
so,
if we can get that in as the revenue.
Yes.
Put it into equipment, it'll be utilized.
yes.
and just to clarify, these are not the power cots, and the state does have requirements now for ambulances to have the power cots in them, so more or less they're obsolete for.
For our use,
Purposes.
yes. For our purposes, we have no vehicle to carry them in or utilize them. Other than doing stretcher training, and most Most ambulances now have the power load stretchers, and the company can actually take these stretchers and probably for a couple $100, turn them into power load stretchers. They can retrofit them.
Return
And
them
raise
back
the
to
price
us.
how much?
And exactly, we're getting $2,200 out of them, which is better than nothing and better than collecting dust.
Thank you. Are there any other discussion or questions?
I'll make a motion that we approve the 2 stretchers on the fixed asset disposal list.
Support.
Clerk Flavich, yes. Treasurer Ellery Summers.
Yeah.
Trustee Kroll,
Yes.
Trustee Reiner.
Yes.
Trustee Polly.
Yes.
Trustee Lappin.
Yeah.
Supervisor Kujabaski.
Yes.
Thank you.
Number 6.
Number 6, which is.
We got the city bill for the water and sewer for the last 3 months. Once we figured out our calculation of what we should pay, it's $414,835.20. We do not have that much money in the water fund at this time. We have about 34,000, so we would need to borrow approximately 400,000 from the general fund to make this payment timely.
Why don't we have the money?
Because we're having a cash flow. The cash
Just
flow,
about-
Bills are going out, but we haven't got our money back in.
yes, and we always pay 2 months ahead of what we bill. We're paying the city before we even bill it out,
Why do we do that?
because we bill at the end. It's our billing cycle that we bill every 3 months. So when we get billed from the city, like we get billed for January, February, and March. But we have not billed February, March, and April. February and March don't get billed until the end of their cycle.
So will this money come in and we'll be able to put it back into the savings? Or back into the general fund?
We will have to do like a monthly payment
Payments.
of 50,000 a month.
Any idea how much?
We've had some high
accounts
attorney
receivable We
fees.
have right
High
now,
attorney fees.
accounts payable rather?
Our cash flow is low because of all the attorney fees.
Sure, of course.
recently.
Do you have any idea how much is owed to us right now from customers?
I do not have that off the top of my head. I don't
Not
know.
that amount, I take it.
No,
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 nowhere close.
no.
Well. guess we don't have
Well,
much
and we did
choice.
run into this the last time too. The last time we got the bill from the city. And we just held off on paying it late.
We paid part of it later.
Right, right.
You
So-
said you have to pay back, was $50,000
It would
a
take
real
us
number?
It would take us
Monthly?
8 months to pay it
8
back.
months.
Yes.
What choice do we have? Is there options?
I don't know any other option or I wouldn't be here with this.
No, let's make, I'll make a motion to take the money out of the general fund to pay our debt, to the city of Alpena on water and sewer. bill. In the amount of 414,000, whatever,
Well, I think we could do just an even 400,000
Alright.
because there is some in there.
for 400,000.
Support.
Was that you?
Correct.
Trustee Wright?
It was me, Grumble.
And then, do you guys want me to put on the motion that we will pay it back with at least 50,000 a month, more if we can?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Support.
Okay.
Trustee Polly?
Yeah, when you get to questions.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
Right now is
You have a
discussion.
It's-
You can
it's-
talk right now.
Oh, yeah, okay. Is this going into, coming from the general fund or the general fund savings?
It's coming, it's gonna come from the investment fund of the general fund.
Which is the general fund savings?
Correct.
Correct. So it's coming out of the fund balance that we have.
General fund part,
Yes.
which is like over $1 million in there.
No, we aren't there yet. That's not the fund we're talking about.
That's what I want to make sure with.
It's the 2.3 million.
2.3 million.
Okay.
Yes.
Huntington or whatever.
That's at Huntington. That's where the money will come out of.
I hate to take it out of a high yield account, but I guess we have to.
Any other questions or discussion?
That raises a question, yes, Steve just did. I mean, is there a penalty for withdrawing this?
No.
No, we do it all the time. I mean, if we need to either invest or redeem the money, it's,
All right, so
We're
it's not like
constantly
a
moving money
Yeah.
into the
It's not
investment
like a-
fund.
no,
short-term.
and it can be done in a day.
investment.
I
Okay,
mean, actually a few hours depending on
Yeah.
the time we apply to do it.
Yeah.
So,
So we have a motion and support.
Any other discussion or questions? Roll call, please.
Treasurer Ellery Summers.
yes.
Trustee Kroll,
Yes.
Trustee Reiner.
yes,
Trustee Polly.
Yes.
Trustee Lappin.
Yes.
Clerk Flavich, yes. Supervisor Kujabaski. I'd like to make a motion that the Township Board enter into closed session to discuss confidential written legal opinion pursuant to MCL 15.268(1)H.
Or
Call, please.
Trustee Kroll,
Yes.
Trustee Reiner.
is there discussion on this motion?
We can have discussion.
I'm sorry,
Do you,
well, is this about labor negotiation?
Wait, well,
1 second. Sure. Attorney Carson, are you online with us?
So we're still in open session?
right,
Okay,
Yeah, so,
okay.
yeah,
So we're
this
having
discussion.
discussion before we go into close.
Yeah.
Okay.
okay.
So the question I have is this about negotiations with the fire department?
No,
It's not.
It's a separate issue.
It's regarding the fire department.
yes, it is regarding the fire department.
It's regarding the fire department.
And Attorney Carson from the labor section of the firm is online. If you have any questions, he's gonna do a brief intro into the closed session for us.
Okay, well, it just, I just wonder if the supervisor is intending to recuse herself if it's involving the fire department. And if not, I mean, you have the discretion to not do that. But I do want to ask the question before we go into closed session, because if it's involving fire department matters of any kind, you've not only stated publicly that you wouldn't be involved in those kinds of discussions or negotiations. And but then I'm somehow of the understanding that you've made a statement more recently that indicates that you intend to. So I'd like to know that before we go into closed session.
Sure. Attorney Carson, do you want to address that a little bit before I speak?
So Trustee Reinhardt's correct. I think you folks might recognize my floating head from last month where that is our legal opinion, that it is there's no technical conflict of interest in the supervisor participating in matters related to the fire department. Of course, as discussed there's the potential for the appearance of impropriety or the appearance that, you know, something untoward is going on. I've had occasion, so I should say specifically, this legal opinion is about 3 grievances that have been brought by the firefighters union that are now at the stage where the board is to consider them. So that's the basis for the closed session. That's the basis for the legal opinion. I've had occasion to meet the supervisor. She braved a whiteout to come to a workshop that the firm put on in the Lansing area last Thursday. So we've discussed, at least to some extent, kind of how that plays out, you know, everything related to my prior memo. I will say in those conversations, I'm confident that she understands the legal ramifications here. It's certainly the board's prerogative as to who is permitted into closed session, and it is the supervisor's discretion about whether she recuses herself. But I do feel that she understands, like I said, the fiduciary duty and the ramifications if something discussed in closed session or if confidential legal advice were to be disclosed in any improper means.
Well, I just want to make sure I understand what you just said, because my understanding is that she has the prerogative to go in and vote and do whatever in and out of closed session regarding the fire department. But I'm also referencing, which is the rules that we go by for procedure here, Robert's Rules, 12th edition 45.4, which says somewhat the same thing. and it says she can do it. But I'm looking at this very similar to a presidential pardon of the president's son, where he made a public statement that he wouldn't pardon him, and then he did. And that's kind of what we've got here. So I think and it bothers me that our public session is closed now because
It's still.
It's still open.
We're still in public session.
I thought they were all crossed out. Maybe that's just their minds. Because I think that the public needs to know of this change in decision-making here of the supervisor. So, I just wanted to know that, but I think it for our board, or at least for the supervisors, public standing within our board, this is problematic, but it's her prerogative. I understand that. Is that what you're telling us, Mr. Carson?
I'd like to add to this also. Are we setting a precedent?
A precedent of what? Can you be more specific?
If this is allowed, would anything be allowed?
I don't
If
think
the
so.
supervisor is allowed to be part of this closed session related to the fire department, by which her husband is the president of the union, are we opening ourselves up to a precedent?
I don't think so. I think you can draw a distinction between this and similar scenarios, and ultimately, the board has sort of limited ability to impose her recusal from the situation. So there's no precedent in the fact that you really don't have the control over the situation, being that it's the supervisor's prerogative. I think the board always has the right to determine who is in a closed session, in any event. So I think you can draw those lines how you see fit going forward. This doesn't have to be the basis for some kind of slippery slope where others are permitted into a closed session. Obviously, the supervisor being in a much different position than, a member of the union, a member of the bargaining unit, who might otherwise be interested in sitting in on the discussion. This is easily distinguishable.
Well, if I may
Michelle
just
wants-
follow up.
Well, I was gonna say, Abby has something to say. I think before we go any further, I'd like to hear what Abby has to say, and then we can all respond.
Thank you. Yeah, and I appreciate that, Attorney Carson. Trustee Reiner, just to address what you were talking about, I chose not to respond to articles that were written in the newspaper, specifically the headline that I think you're referring to. But I do have the email where those questions were asked of me and the answer that I actually provided. And I'd be happy to read it to you. I did not ever actually say that I was going to recuse myself from any one specific thing. So the question asked of me was, do you intend to recuse yourself from any vote involving the fire department and remain on the sidelines during contract negotiations? To which my written, emailed, provided response was, in the event that I win the election, I intend to do what is required by law to uphold the ethics and integrity of the position. So just referring to that, I feel that the newspaper took it upon themselves to make the headline that they made. It was very frustrating for me because I haven't had the opportunity to talk to any of you guys about this. I hadn't talked to the attorneys about it either until just recently. But I don't want there to be any hard feelings about it. And I'm glad that you brought it up because I have been meaning to address it. I just wasn't really sure how or when to address it, but no time like the present.
It's my job on this board sometimes to be the guy that makes you bring it up.
I'm totally okay with it, and I'm, happy to be doing it in open session, obviously. Which is why actually I asked Attorney Carson to kind of initiate this conversation. Because we did speak about this several times now, once during a whiteout. Just so that I was clear myself, because I don't want to do anything to put the township in a position of impropriety. So regarding his memo that was read at a previous meeting, and Attorney Carson, please stop me if I am incorrect or just clarify if needs to be, that it is not a technical or legal conflict for me to participate in the closed session. I realize,
Yeah.
go ahead.
That is correct. So the law doesn't impute a conflict of interest from one spouse to another. So you are, there is no technical conflict of interest. Of course, as laid out in the memo, there are other potential concerns at issue, but there is not a legal bar to participation.
And my concern is ethically, how does it make our board look when you are married to the president of the union?
Who's bringing the grievance?
Right.
Yes,
Okay.
so,
I
I mean, I think it does not make our board. Because as a board, we are one, and if
Absolutely.
one of us looks bad,
Absolutely, and I understand that and can respect that. The one thing that I want to say is that it is certainly not my intention to misappropriate anything or do anything unlawful. I fully intend to uphold my fiduciary duties, my responsibilities, my statutory duties as well. And I guess for a lack of better terms, I feel that sitting in on the closed session and at least having the opportunity to hear what is being said gives me a better understanding of the situation. So that I can more effectively do my job in whole as the supervisor. I know that it may or may not be difficult to view my position right now as one of impropriety. For me personally, I feel that I am capable of separating my position as township supervisor from my position as a spouse of the union president. And to the best of my understanding, once closed session happens, I will have the opportunity at that time to specifically, after closed session happens, I would have the time to specifically recuse myself or abstain from any vote that I felt was necessary.
but you've already heard.
Then you already have all.
We've already heard our attorney's advice.
Right.
You've already heard everything. So recusing yourself from a vote optically doesn't really mean anything
No.
because you're going home
Mhm.
to somebody that we are discussing.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a problem with the optics of this. You know,
Me too.
there was to be perfectly blunt, there was a great deal of information put out online about transparency and all this kind of stuff. And now we're at a point where you could have talked about this 2 months ago. But now we're just about to go into closed session and now we're talking about it. I've got a problem with that. Whether it's legally appropriate or inappropriate, doesn't matter to me. I understand that you're going to uphold the law. I would certainly hope that you would. I just have a little bit of an issue with optics. You guys have heard me talk about optics in the past. And some people are going to say, there we go again.
Mhm.
And so I have a problem with this.
I feel like we've come so far from, even though some people might not agree with us, but we have come far with the fire department from when I got on this board. I mean, it's not like how it used to be, and I don't want to now give the perception to the people that we're doing something I don't think is ethically right. I mean, if it got discussed in closed session that we needed to write somebody up or possibly let them go, whatever it is. And if it is someone you're related to, whatever it is, that would be really hard to separate that.
I think it'd be awkward for
And
all of us to be
right.
honest and give our full opinion
Right,
when you are related to someone.
right.
Well, and that's why we go into closed session is because what we talk about in closed session isn't supposed to go to the other side of the negotiation.
Right.
So let me ask you guys this. From what I'm understanding is the concern is that I would then go home and talk to my spouse about whatever was discussed in closed session, which we all know is not legal or ethical.
And even if that's not the case, optics is, it's going to look bad for our board. And things slip out of people's mouths.
Well, and people are going to assume that you do share it with
Even though you say you won't, you know what I mean?
Chris,
Because,
no.
Understand?
right.
Yeah, I understand what you guys are saying. I
I
think
mean,
that-
you're in a bad situation too. I mean,
No, she is, she's in a bad situation.
yeah,
It's a tough spot.
But and I want people to feel, if we're in a closed session, whatever it is, that we should be able to talk openly during a closed session.
But
And I feel like I'd be watching kind of, maybe I want to say this, but I won't because, you know,
So,
Probably not.
Carla, if you'll just give me one moment.
Yeah, right.
I do understand what you guys are saying. However, I also feel like, maybe there is a misperception at hand here. I've already sat in on closed session regarding the water litigation, which seemed to be no issue,
No issue at all.
no
issue at
issue.
all.
right?
No,
So
no issue.
I've upheld
Yep.
my part, in that.
Mhm.
But the tough spot for me is that I feel like stepping out and not at least hearing the discussion, just further drives that wedge in between and
In between what?
in between myself and the board, myself and the fire department, the board and the fire department. I sincerely feel that if the public thought this was an issue, it would have been brought up before the week before the election.
I do believe we shouldn't go to the election because nobody knew that you were married to a firefighter
No.
in August.
Mm.
That did not come out till after the August election,
Okay.
so
Yeah, so it's, you know,
that's not a real.
And I just think as unfortunate as the optics are, it is what it is. She has a tough choice to make tonight. Obviously, that's in her hands. We understand it doesn't look good, but at the same time, we're gonna have to move forward as a board and she's gonna have more tough decisions because there are gonna be decisions like these are gonna have to be made and there's gonna be more closed sessions and it is what it is. I mean, as much as we don't like it,
or do we want to talk about this stuff in open session?
Well, I don't understand what
I'm
you're
just
saying. What-
throwing that out there.
The grievances?
Mhm.
no.
Well, I'm just
I
saying.
think they have to be willing, those, the grievance, I think they have to be. I might be putting some other personnel stuff in the middle of this and
Well,
mixing
we
it
can
up.
ask Chad, do we have the option of just discussing these grievances in open session? Or do we have to get permission from the union to do that?
No, you can always discuss things in open session. The Open Meetings Act is trying as hard as it can to keep you in open session unless you have a specific purpose to go into closed session. I will say from my perspective, it is challenging to give candid legal advice in open session because of course we can't have a privileged conversation in that context. And so whatever I say is sort of fair game to be distributed as anybody would want it to be. So that's the challenging part. From my perspective is I'm a little bit hamstrung in my ability to give you a candid assessment of what's happening, but it is the board's prerogative whether it goes into closed session.
And that's part of the problem, being an attorney, I understand that, is that you wouldn't want the other attorney on the other side, for example, to know what you're telling your client.
Right.
You just wouldn't want that.
Yeah, and you, from any stand. So let me ask you this, the memo that you wrote, the legal opinion that you wrote, suggested that although the law doesn't make a particular definitive decision on it, one way or the other, our policies and procedures do, and they supersede that which was written in by whatever MCL number. So I'm trying to get an answer as to what you think we should do, because your memo implied she should be asked not to be part of closed sessions as it relates to the fire department. Of course, anything else like litigation, et cetera, with the water department, that's a totally different thing. But I guess I'm trying to get what you think we all should do.
So I think it is problematic under your rules. The rules do not supersede the law, though. She could potentially be violating. So it's a little bit tricky in this sense too, because in rereading the rules, I cited to things like the township officials observing both the spirit and intent of laws, ordinances, and policies, acting in a fair, impartial manner, acting in ways consistent with the township's best interest, things along those lines. Those don't supersede the law, so there's no legal barrier to her being present. There perhaps, and this is again kind of only an issue if the information is used improperly, but there could perhaps be violations of those rules. The flip side of that being the board's only means to effectuate those rules are, a censure or more informal means. There's no real enforcement mechanism behind them.
Right, we can do censure motion, right? something like that. But she has the discretion to go into the private discussions with our attorney and we can't, as a board, overrun that. All we can do is pass a motion that says we ask her not to. Right?
That's
You're
correct.
saying? And whoever wrote that opinion or wherever it came from that said that spouses are, I don't remember the language, it's fancy legal jargon, but it was something to the effect that spouses are treated independently when you're deciding a conflict of interest, but yet even Robert's rule says conflict of interest. But it says, but it's still, the chair has the discretion or the individual has the discretion to still participate fully in all the sessions. That's basically where we're at, isn't it, as a board?
That's correct. Yeah, I think if there were a clear legal, if there were precedent that said that or a law that said specifically it was a conflict of interest, I think the board certainly could would have a lot more discretion in kind of getting to that particular outcome, because that is not what the law says. It is, again, the supervisor's discretion about whether she would participate in things related to the fire department.
Trustee Polly, you had a question?
Yes, Abby, I'm kind of a person of common sense. And common sense tells me in this that you yourself wouldn't even want to be here just for the common sense part of it because of the optics and everything else. But it's your choice. So you can put that and think about it the way you want to go, but this board has to move on and do what they got to do.
I call the question on the motion to go into closed session.
What did he do?
What?
I call the question. In other words, have a vote.
Oh, okay.
If I don't even know if that needs a second. I don't think that's a motion in and of itself. I think you can just call the question. I can look it up if you want.
I think Russ wants us to vote on whether or not we go into closed session. now.
Yes.
Let's go in a closed session.
Okay, so I'll do a roll call. Trustee Kroll,
Yes.
trustee Reiner,
Yes.
trustee Polly.
Yes.
Trustee Lappin,
Yes.
clerk Palovich, yes, treasurer Ellery Summers.
Yes.
Supervisor Kujabaski.
Yes.